I'm Annette Tankersley, and I am here to provide a short video lesson for context clues. I wanted to verify just our purpose for the lesson today, using that gradual release of responsibility teacher model, using the I will, we will, and you will components to help students understand the concept that we're working with today. So I will be introducing the lesson, just making sure that the students are clarifying or understand what we are talking about today, modeling some examples of the concept, turning that over to a guided practice kind of scenario where I will be working with students using shared reading materials. And then as they are working independently or working together, actually, I'm gonna be observing them, prompting, questioning them, having them respond, etc. And then at the end, that component is more of a collaborative effort where they are going to be working with their shoulder partner, and then they will eventually work independently on a digital exercise. So to begin the lesson, this is digging deeper for context clues. We are going to be little detectives today as we move through our reading passages for getting a better understanding of what context clues are and what they do. So what are context clues and how do we use them? So from our standard standpoint, good readers should use context clues to find the meaning of unknown words. And we are going to take a look at how we can do this. We are constantly, through our reading, we're constantly coming across unknown words that maybe we kind of skip over. I think some of us can share that we do that. Sometimes if we don't understand a word, it's easier to just jump over it and then trying to figure out what it means. So we're going to kind of fix that and use this strategy to help us be a better reader. So when we're searching for context clues, we are looking for some of these examples. So we can, if there's an unknown word that is embedded as a definition, we want to be looking for that. Maybe it has something to do with a synonym, words that are similar to each other. Maybe it's an antonym where we can look for things that are the opposite of that particular word. Examples, showing examples or looking for examples within a text will also help us understand more of what we are reading, and then making some inferences based on what the word is. So again, we're looking before, we're looking after, we're looking into the actual passage where the word is that we do not understand. So I have some examples here today that we're going to use as a group. And so my first example is the ancient Chinese used the abacus, a device with movable beads that can be used as a calculator. So this is an example of a definition. How do we know it's a definition? Students would respond by, well, because we have abacus, it's set aside with a comma to show us the definition of what that particular word would mean, a device with movable beads. So it gives us a better understanding of what that device is. Another example, the rambunctious kids ran out to the bus and climbed on board. They jumped and yelled and just couldn't settle down. Okay, so our word is rambunctious, and obviously it's talking about kids, so kind of get yourself a little bit of a visual there. How do we know this is in particular is a synonym? So how do we know that it's something very similar? Or how do we know that it's a synonym? We know it's a synonym because the context of the explanation of rambunctious is they jumped and yelled and just couldn't settle down. So you all know how that looks whenever you are running out of the bus. We all know what that looks like. All right, and another example that we could use today, we were all very suspicious. We didn't know who we could trust. Okay, so this is an example of suspicious using the antonym of that particular word. If we don't know who we can trust, then that means that we are not ready to trust that person. So suspicious means someone that we cannot trust in order to be, to have a better understanding of what that word means. All right, so as we continue through the lesson, we would have a conversation of any other examples that they might be able to come up with on their own. So that would be a guided practice kind of activity. So then we would go to let's practice this together. So today I have the passage, a written passage, and obviously it has a lot of, I have the words highlighted for students, and they're going to be able to hopefully be able to identify the underlined word based on the context that it plays in the passage. So as one of the things that I would do to help my students would be to, first of all, I would read the passage to them. This is just part of the passage that I'm using. I wouldn't want to use a whole page just because not only for time, but for I want to focus in on just the understanding of context clues itself. So I would read this passage to them, and then we would go back. So I want them to hear what I'm saying, and then we would go back. So for example, I would read, opening the door into my house was like bumping into a wall of the nastiest smell in the whole world. Mom, I called. There was no answer, so I proceeded to the kitchen in search of clues. Could it be rotten food in the refrigerator? I would stop here and go to the word proceeded. So in asking students, how do I know what this word means and in the context that it is being addressed? So proceeded, if I took that word out, I blanked to the kitchen in search of clues. And then they would be able to respond with something very similar. So I would be using a synonym. Maybe I walked to the kitchen, or I ran to the kitchen. So proceeded could be meaning that I walked or ran to the kitchen, so using a synonym. So I would go through each one of my words in that same manner. After we have finished, this is our, we've done this together, and so then I would want to continue for them to work with a partner, and they could finish the rest of the information together, and then we would come back and share what our responses were. When we get to the you practice part of the lesson, I have included a couple of things for students to be able to do. I have a just for fun, which here on my board I would address them to, we use Canvas as a learning platform, so I would have this for them on their Canvas page for them to be able to access. This is a Gimkit where they would be able to, they would be given a code, and then they would be able to log in and work on a Gimkit, which only had like 15 or 16 questions. So that would be kind of fun. We also use Flocabulary here in my district, and this includes a short video. It has some vocabulary elements, and it also has the information embedded within a reading passage as well as a quiz. So this would also help students with their, from that informational standpoint, it would be able to help them kind of work through some of the issues that they were having. And then obviously the quiz I could use for a formative assessment if I wished. For this particular lesson, I've chosen to do a work page that will be used as a formative assessment. It is a slide presentation where writable slide, and they would need to go in, they need to make a copy. So That way they will be able to pull this up, and then they can click on the blanks that are provided. They will type their name, and then they will, this is just a very short, formative, informational piece to let me know, do I need to go back and reteach this lesson, or do I need to have them do some extra practice? Okay, so I like this. And then they would just share it with me whenever they got finished, and then we would come back together as a group and determine what their needs are from there. When it comes to differentiated instruction within the classroom, I use a variety of ways in order to help my students with either IEPs or learning disabilities or 504s to be able to make them more successful in the classroom along with the rest of their classmates. So this is an example of the anchor chart that I was going to be using for this particular topic for context clues. And so I would have this as a visual within the classroom for me to be able to refer back to in order for students to be able to have a visual of the concept that we had just covered in class. So that I could, whether I'm with a small group, an intervention group, it would always be there until we moved on to the next topic. Another way for me to be able to differentiate within our classroom setting is to look at their reading levels. Not all students read at the same level, so based on where their needs are and what their reading level is, I would make sure that the passages that I used were specifically directed toward that particular grade level that they're reading at, or their reading level piece. So, for example, this might be a 4th grade reading level that I would use for my intervention group to be able to make them more successful in the classroom. Another piece that I can also differentiate for them is through the use of the extra technology pieces that I might add into my lesson. So for example, I used a GIM kit here, and again, I could direct that specifically for kids who are, whatever their needs are. Vocabulary also, generally that's on a 5th grade level, so I would use that perhaps for my higher readers, and then use a different tool to be able to assist other students in the classroom as well. My work page, again, could be leveled based on the reading levels and just ability levels. And then I would be able to sit down with them in a small group setting to be able to either read to them or help them in any way that they need to. So I'm a huge proponent of differentiated instruction. So it would be something that I would just incorporate into any lesson that I would do.